I didn't catch the girl's trip lie right away, because lies are most comfortable when they wear clothes they've borrowed from the truth. The first picture she posted was safe 4 women on a windswept boardwalk, all filtered into late afternoon gold. The kind of light that makes strangers believe in your happiness. There was a plastic cup of something neon in each of their hands, and a caption that said, "Deserved." I was at home doing laundry, which feels like the opposite of deserving anything. I stood over the open dryer and scrolled through their smiles and tried to will myself into being the kind of husband who saw pictures like that and felt only pride. Her name is Leah, though lately I'd started thinking of her as my wife. Even when I was alone, as if it could anchor something drifting. We'd been married 5 years, long enough for a drawer to collect things we didn't know where else to put. A handful of screws from a shelf we never assembled, a foreign coin that had arrived in change, a safety pin bent in a way that made it scary to use. We'd also collected a set of almost conversations that we kept saving for a night when we weren't too tired. A weekend when the weather wasn't too nice to ruin with truth. The second picture was less careful. It flashed by in her story for maybe 30 minutes before she replaced it with a sunset. It was the same boardwalk, but the edge of it, the camera crooked, the girls out of focus, and behind them a man leaned against a scuffed railing, wearing a baseball cap. Pulled low, you could only see his jaw. I wouldn't have looked twice, except Lee has a habit when she's in a room with someone she shouldn't be. She turns her head a little too much toward the exit, like she's practicing the line of escape. In the picture, her body angled toward the man without admitting it. My thumb hesitated on the screen like a nervous animal. I told myself he was a stranger, a photobomber, a boardwalk ghost. At home the dryer finished its soft roar and stilled. I took out a towel and folded it like an apology. The third picture didn't arrive until after midnight. I woke up to pee and checked my phone, because I always check my phone when I should let my mind go back to its quiet. A bonfire on a beach. The girls' faces were lit from below, and they looked like conspirators who decided arson was a kind of therapy. In the background, to the right of Leah's shoulder, a silhouette shaped like a history, I thought, we'd buried stood with his hands in his pockets. I knew that posture the way you know how to tie your shoes. Dawson, her high school ex. The planet she'd once orbited so closely, she forgot the rest of the sky. I zoomed in until pixels argued with each other. The angles stayed the same. The man's hat was the same brand he used to wear, the one with a small stitched animal that always looked like it was running away. The line of his chin, the slope of his shoulders, the way even his shadow smirked. I closed my eyes and saw the other pictures, the ones from 15 years ago, the ones Leap kept in a shoebox under our bed, as if proximity to my side of the room turned them into proof that her past no longer had teeth. The kid versions of them on a pier, on a curb, on a hood of a car. Leah pressed into him, as if he were the wind, and she needed help leaning. I could have called. I could have texted something soft and steady like, "Hey, looks fun. Miss you," and let her climb down from whatever she had posted herself onto. Instead, I put my phone face down and listened to the radiator hum like a tired preacher. Along the windowsill our basil plant tilted toward the streetlight, as if it couldn't tell mercy from attention. I thought about my father telling me when I was 12 that love is mostly waiting correctly. I thought about my mother telling me when I was 27 that waiting is sometimes a fancy word for letting someone build an alibi inside you. In the morning I made coffee too strong and drank it anyway because punishment felt productive. I kept my ring on even though it itched. Leah didn't text until 11. And when she did it was a picture of a gull with a French fry in its mouth. The caption, "Men be like." I stared at it until my eyes felt gritty. I sent back a thumbs up, the most cowardly of all possible responses. I went to work because routine makes a good bandage. I'm a project manager for a small firm that builds mid-range things. The office for a start. Up that overestimated its stamina. The addition for a family who outgrew their own whispers. The kind of buildings nobody visits unless they belong there. I like schedules. I like lists with boxes to check. I like telling men twice my size, "We're going to move that poor to Friday," and having them nod like the world has edges you can grip. Around noon, my friend Ely pings me in our chat with a link and the words, "You seeing this?" The link is Leah's tagged photo, not posted by her but by another member of the trip, a woman named Marnie who loves an audience. In it, the group sits around a table at a place with white wooden chairs and oysters. At the very edge of the frame, someone's hand rests on the tablecloth near Leah's elbow. It's a man's hand, because of the veins, because of the size, because of the way he holds his fingers like he doesn't need anything. The thumbnail for the second image in the carousel shows that hand moving closer. I don't click. Eli sends another message, softer this time. Want me to cop to seeing it and be the bad guy? Or, you want a handle? I stare at the construction schedule and realize none of the numbers will mean anything if I can't trust my own math. Do nothing. I type. For now. I make it to 3 in the afternoon before I text Leah. How's it going? She replies with a heart, and then, we're at the shore. Why is it different from the regular shore? I'd K but I'm drunk and I love you. She sprinkles it with vowels like confetti. I try to smile at my monitor as if it were a person. Love you too. I write, and add a construction hat emoji, because I don't know how to signal worry without sounding like a parent. At night I can't sleep, this time not from the pull of a bathroom, but from the feeling of a house waking up to a fire. I go to the living room and sit in the dark with the basil and the radiator and a streetlight that thinks it is the moon. Leah's account is quiet, which is somehow worse. Around 2, Marnie posts a video. I turn the volume way down, like I'm trying not to wake up the part of me that will do something irreversible. 4 women singing terribly into a phone, their voices pushed windward. The camera swings and swings back. For a fraction of a second, another face slides into the frame, laughing at something off to the side, and I feel it in my teeth. It's him. Dawson. Older, yes. A beard where there was once only the idea of one. A little heavier, maybe, or maybe it's just the way memory dresses our enemies in armor. But it's him. They're not in a public place anymore. They're in a rental. The kind of place thrown together by someone who respects granite countertops more than comfort. There's a sign in the kitchen that says, "Gather," and a bowl of lemons that might be plastic. Leah is wearing one of my T-shirts. The thin navy one I told her made me feel like a sail. I stand up too fast and the room goes sideways. In the morning I call her. She answers on the 3rd ring, and I can hear surf and the crack of a gull. "Hey," she says, the voice she uses when someone might be listening. "Can I call you later? We're about to go get." I saw him, I say. Silence, not long, a single blink's worth. And then, "Leah," I say, and it's not a question and it's not a plea. "Why is Dawson there? He wasn't supposed to come." She says, as if that makes any syllable of this better. He kind of lives here now. Marnie invited him to a bonfire, because his sister knows her, and then somehow he kept being around. It's not like that. What exactly is it like? I ask, and in the background someone shouts, "Shots." And someone else shouts, "No." And both of those someones sound like people I don't care about. She sighs a sigh I've heard in other rooms. "Don't make this a thing," she says. "I needed this trip. I needed to feel like the beginning of me again, before everything. Before jobs and mortgages, and, he's part of that time. He's not a time, I say. He's a person standing near you when I'm not, and that changes the math of the air. That's poetry, she says, with a faint sneer, like poetry is lying we approve of when we don't like the truth. Are you going to sleep with him? I ask. The question feels both blunt and ridiculous, like asking if the ocean is planning on being wet. I don't know how to make plain language stand up straight. No, she says too quickly. God, no. I'm not a stereotype. We're just catching up. He's telling me about his divorce and I'm telling him about us. Please don't, I say. Please don't tell him about us. Please don't give him our parts to play with. You're being controlling, she says. I'm allowed to have a past. You are, I say, and I walk a hand through my hair so hard I can feel my scalp complain. But it's not past if it's happening now. If the past has a pulse next to you, it's the present. She goes quiet long enough for me to imagine her standing on a balcony, staring at a fake lemon bowl, trying to find the shape of herself in it that feels like victory. You're fine, she says finally, like she's soothing a pet. Stop catastrophizing. I love you. Don't make me block you just to enjoy my weekend. I hang up before my mouth can say something. My ribs will have to house forever. I sit on the floor with our basil, and I rotate it a quarter turn, because I read somewhere that you should, and then I get angry that I'm taking care of a plant like it's a substitute for a marriage. By noon, Marnie has posted a photo of a deck of cards, and a caption about winner takes the big bedroom. The corner of a baseball cap in the shot makes me want to break something that doesn't belong to me. I think of driving down there. It's only 4 hours. I think of knocking on the rental door and saying, "Hi. I'm the husband in the story you're making with capital letters." I think of Dawson leaning against a doorframe and smiling with his mouth only, and the difference between my anger and his amusement makes me want to die. Ely, who has apparently decided to be my shepherd through a desert I didn't know I'd be crossing this year, calls me around 2. Emergency pizza, he says, and doesn't wait for me to say yes because he never has. He shows up with 2 boxes and an expression he uses for job sites on fire. He doesn't say, "You, okay," because he knows there's only one answer people give to that when they aren't. He says, "Tell me everything in one breath, and then we make a plan." I tell him badly. I tell him haltingly. I tell him in a way that would get me fired if the problem were structural, because I keep leaving out crucial supports and then trying to load weight. He listens like he's fishing and I'm a lake patient, expecting nothing, prepared to be surprised. When I'm done, he puts a slice on a plate and slides it across my table. "Eat," he says. Then write her a message that she can't wriggle out of. What do I write? I ask. You write the truth like a receipt, he says. You list, I saw this, I heard this, it means this to me, and it will change this if you don't stop. No metaphors. No windows. No basil. I want metaphors. I want poetry. Poetry is how I keep my body from tearing itself. But I also want the kind of clarity that looks ugly and demands a judge. I open my phone. My thumbs hover like birds who haven't decided if the ocean is safe. I write, I can't do this. A girl's trip is not a trip with your ex. I am not a man who will be married to the version of you that needs attention from him. If you want this marriage, come home today. If you want to be with someone who knows who you were at 17, don't come home at all. If you come home, we go to counseling this week. If you don't, I will assume you picked him and I will file. I love you. I won't share you. I delete. I love you. I put it back. I delete. I won't share you. Because it makes me sound like a man who thinks people are things. I put it back because it also makes me sound like someone with a boundary that isn't negotiable. I send it. I feel physically lighter in a way that should worry me. Eli claps once, a short happy clap. Good, he says. Good. Now we wait. Lee doesn't reply for an hour. Then 2. Then 3. In the 4th hour, a text comes in. Are you serious? You're giving me an ultimatum because I'm on vacation. This is toxic. You're toxic. I don't control who other people invite to things. You need to get a grip. I type, come home, and send. She types for a long time. The bubble appears and disappears like a pulse. The final message is a picture of the ocean at dusk. A streak of orange like a wound that has decided not to heal tonight. And the words, I need to think without you making me pick. Please don't ruin this for me. Okay. I say out loud in my apartment. Because sometimes you have to hear your own voice to know you didn't disappear. I call a lawyer. Her name is Kendra, and she has the voice of someone who makes men sign things they think they can charm their way out of. She says, do you want to save it, or do you want to protect yourself? While you find out if it can be saved. I say both like a coward. She says okay like someone used to that answer. She tells me step 1 is information. Step 2 is a conversation with a therapist. Step 3 is deciding if step 4 is try or stop. At 9 that night, Marnie posts a photo. It is careless, and that carelessness is a gift. The girls are on a porch, bare feet on a painted floor, wine glasses bigger than their faces. Leah sits on the railing in the middle. Next to her, cut off at the shoulder, is a man. He is half on the porch and half out of it, as if the house can't keep him. You can see his shirt though, and it's the one Dawson wore in high school to every assembly. The faded concert tee with a bird on it that never looked quite like a bird. I save the photo. It makes me feel sick to do it. Like poisoning a well you might need to drink from if the siege lasts too long. At midnight, my phone buzzes. Leah. I'm not coming home early. I deserve fun. We will talk when I'm back. Don't do anything dumb. I love you. But I love me too. The sentence is the kind of reasonable that wants to kick a hole through your door, so it can let itself in. I don't sleep well for the rest of the trip. I drink water, and it tastes like arguments. I go to work and I ask men to move concrete they cannot move, because some parts of the day have to obey me, or I won't remember who I am. Eli texts me jokes that barely land and emojis that feel like receipts for the friendship I am spending like bail. On the last night of the trip, Leah goes dark, no posts, no wise gulls, no bonfire. At 1 a.m, I send, "Are you safe?" She doesn't reply. At 3, she sends a heart. At 7, she sends a picture of a diner coffee and says, "Road home." And I sit at our table and count my spoons like prizes and decide how I will use them. She comes through the door at noon with a duffel that smells like a beach nobody should miss. She is wearing sunglasses inside. Her hair is pulled back in a way that always makes me think of the girl in her yearbook who everyone wrote LYLS to. She hugs me because hugging is easier than talking. I stand there like furniture she has bumped into. She pulls back and her eyes flit to my face like birds looking for seed. "Hey," she says. "Hey," I say. We stand there for a beat in which the whole world could break. She sets her bag down and says, "I missed you." And I say nothing, because if I open my mouth the wrong sound will come out. She moves around the apartment like someone reacquainting herself with a room after a storm. She touches the back of a chair, the corner of a counter, the rim of our ridiculous bowl of limes that we never use and always replace before they rot because the green makes the kitchen look alive. She smiles at the basil plant like she could take credit for its stubbornness. I ask, "Did you see him?" She says, "Yes," and her honesty is a knife wrapped in cloth. I ask, "Did you touch him?" She says, We hugged hello and goodbye. And I can tell there's a space between those words where something else would fit if she were a different kind of person. I ask, "Did you sleep with him?" She looks insulted and then wounded and then bored. "No," she says, and I believe her, because lying for that takes stamina she only uses when there's an audience. I ask, "Why did you need him there?" And she says, "He just reminds me of the version of myself that wasn't afraid of anything." And I feel older than both of us. I tell her about the therapist appointment on Wednesday. I tell her about Kendra, the lawyer, and the questions she asked me. Leah's face shifts into a posture I can't read, like the sky deciding between sun and whiteout. "I don't like that you called a lawyer," she says, not angry, not sad, just taking notes. "That feels like a threat." "It's a contingency," I say. "It's a map if the road we're on disappears." She takes off her sunglasses and sets them on the counter. The red mark on the bridge of her nose looks like a tiny wound. "I don't want to feel policed," she says. "I don't want to feel like you're the parole officer of my nostalgia. I don't want to be a cop," I say, and I mean it. I want to be the person you come home to because you want to come home to me, not because your phone died and you got bored. As she laughs, a bark of sound with no humor in it. "That's not fair. Neither is a girl's trip with your high school ex," I say. "He's not a girl." "You're being literal in a way that makes you sound childish," she says.
"You know what I meant."
"I know what you called it," I say. "I know what it was." She moves toward me and then stops. Her maquette of a hug paused for approval. "Let's just reset," she says. "Let's eat. I brought you taffy from the shore. I brought you Leah," I say, and now I'm the one who tinges her name with the weight of our past. "If you want to be married to me, you can't be friends with Dawson." Her face closes like a hand. "That's controlling," she says. "That's like the beginning of one of those posts where a man ends up making a woman choose between every person she ever loved and him." "I said him," I say. "Not everyone. He's my history," she says. "History doesn't sit next to you on a porch and drink wine," I say. "History stays in a box under the bed and lets us be stupid over it sometimes, and then we blow the dust off, laugh, and put it back." She holds my gaze until it hurts, and then looks at the basil like it could tell her a way out of this room. "Okay," she says after a very long minute, the kind of "okay" people use when they're about to cheat on a test, because the test is unfair. "Okay. I won't see him anymore." "You can't text him," I say. "You can't tell him about who we are in this apartment. You can't feed him the parts of me that you find inconvenient to digest." "That's a gross metaphor," she says, and I want to laugh because yes it is. "Do you agree?" I ask. She hesitates. Then, "Yes," and sets her mouth into that straight line she used to use when her father would ask her to apologize for something she did on purpose. We don't talk more about it that day. We make dinner badly and eat it like it's ammunition we have to finish before we can lay down our weapons. At night she reaches for me in bed, and my body betrays me by answering, and for a while we are two animals determined to prove that they can outrun a fire by sprinting through it. She cries afterward and calls it release. I stare at the ceiling and call it a reprieve, because I don't know the word for mercy. When it makes your tongue taste like smoke. On Wednesday we go to the therapist. Her office is in an old factory repurposed into a maze of self-improvement. The stairs smell like yoga mats and coffee. She is tiny and unsmiling and wears boots like she could kick sense into a wall. She asks us to tell the story into the air, and she tells us when we use the word always or never. And she asks who taught us those words. Leah is good at telling her version like a movie that points its camera only where the light is flattering. I am good at telling mine like a ledger that assumes everything can be counted. The therapist says, "You both have jobs here. Leah, you have to stop treating your life like a gallery where people can come and admire your wounds. And you," she looks at me, "you have to stop hoping that rules will save you from heartbreak." We leave with homework. We are to write each other a letter before Sunday. We are to list 3 boundaries we can keep without blaming the other for the temptation to break them. I walk out into the afternoon feeling 10% lighter and 90% certain that I am confusing clarity with control. Leah walks out looking like she won something. In the car, she squeezes my hand and says, "Thank you for trying." And the tenderness in her voice is almost enough to gaslight me into believing we were arguing about cabs. Over the next week, she is careful, which is to say she doesn't leave digital crumbs I can follow into a trap I build for myself. She puts her phone face up instead of face down. She laughs, but she doesn't perform it. She tells me small things about her day that are boring enough to feel like trust. We watch a show about people trying to fix houses that shouldn't be lived in, and when the ceiling falls in, we both say, "Nope," at the same time, and then look at each other like maybe we're on the same team. I almost forget to worry. Then Marnie posts another picture. This time a throwback, which should make it safe, and instead erases the border between then and now. The girls at a high school football game, their hair big, their smiles bigger. A boy in a jersey with his arms slung around Leah's shoulder like a claim staked in marker. The caption says, "Fact beat to the glory days with a little flame." Leah comments, "Ong," and Dawson, from wherever he lives when he isn't haunting our fluids, comments a winky face with a word that used to be a joke between them. I don't say anything to Leah that night. I don't ask her to go back in time and unthread herself. I do put my phone in a drawer and go for a walk in the kind of dark that tells you if you're brave. 2 weeks pass without incident. I feel like someone learning to sleep with one eye closed. We do our letters. Leah's is full of words like sovereignty and self. Mine is full of words like trust and protect. The therapist nods at both like a parent with 2 kids' drawings on the fridge. Both equally treasured and equally not the point. Then comes the detail that ends pretending. It's a Saturday morning and Leah is in the shower and her phone lights up with a text that says, "If you're really done, be done. Don't half me." The name is not saved, just a number. But I know the rhythm of the punctuation, the way it refuses to participate in exclamation points. I stand there with my hands on the counter, literally holding on, like people do in movies when they don't trust their knees. I do not go through her phone. I do not need to. If someone is clean, you don't catch a stain on the front of your shirt by accident. I pick up my keys and go to the coffee place on the corner because I need someone to hand me something warm and tell me the price is finite. The barista smiles with a sympathy she probably didn't mean. I sit with the cup until it cools and tastes like regret. At home, the shower stops. She emerges with a towel around her hair and another around her body, and she is beautiful in the way someone is when you decide to remember. You're allowed to want them. "Hey," she says breathy like we're new. "Who texted you?" I say, not even pretending to ease into it. She freezes the way rabbits do when their bodies decide stillness is their only weapon. "Excuse me," she says, and I hate that I know her so well I can hear the calculus behind the syllables. "If you're really done, be done. Don't half me," I quote, and her face does a small, trained thing that might be called a wince in a creature less practiced. "It's Marnie's cousin," she says. "He's dramatic. He is breaking up with someone." On your phone to your number. I say, and I'm tired of myself, of the courtroom in my mouth. She sighs, then puts her hand to her forehead. You promised not to police me, she says. I promised not to police your nostalgia, I say. I didn't promise to be Navi. It's Dawson, she says then, suddenly, like unwrapping a present we both knew was there. He wants to talk. He wanted to talk. I told him no. Isn't that what you wanted? Why am I being punished for doing the right thing? Because you didn't tell me, I say. Because you kept a door unlocked and told me to relax. It's not like I went to meet him in a motel, she says, and laughs that humorless bark again. God, you're impossible. You're married, I say, and I can hear my father's voice behind mine. And I hate that too. Sometimes I think I'm married to your image of what a wife is. She says, and the therapist would be proud of that sentence if she didn't know the blood it asks for. We are quiet, then. The quiet is not calm. The quiet is a bridge before a train. I look around our kitchen and suddenly all of it looks rented. The bowl of limes, the basil plant, the ceramic mug with a chip shaped like Nevada, the towels with our initials sewn onto them by a cousin who will be very disappointed if we become a story, people. Whisper instead of a story people toast. I want a separation, I say, and my mouth writes the sentence before my brain can object. 30 days. You stay at your sister's. We go no contact except through the therapist. If at the end you still want to be married to me, we'll come back and try like people who didn't pretend it didn't break. Her face goes white like a sheet you put over furniture. You're not ready to sell. You're threatening me with divorce because I answered a text. I'm threatening us with truth because you keep testing gravity. I say, people fall. We are people. She steps closer and then changes directions and opens the fridge because cold helps some people not cry. What does my sister's couch prove? She asks, pouring water into a glass and not drinking it. That you can pick a version of yourself and stand inside it. I say, that you can choose me, without needing to see his face in your head to feel chosen. She stares at me over the rim of the glass like she could will me into being a better man by squinting. And if I say no to the separation, she asks. Then I say yes to a lawyer. I say, and I hate how cinematic it sounds. I hate that I'm making a line in a movie we didn't audition for. I hate more that it's true. She leaves that afternoon with things crammed into a bag that looks like it has been to more exotic places than our living room. She doesn't slam the door because she thinks that makes her look civilized. She texts me hours later to say, I'm fine. Don't do anything until we talk to Elise, the therapist. Monday. I write back, okay, because sometimes consent is just letting the day pass without adding gasoline. I sleep poorly the first week. The house makes noises like bones settling. The basil plant drops one leaf, and then another in what feels like protest. Eli texts me every morning a picture of his ugly dog in a sweater that says, hang in there, on it, and I want to hug the stupid animal, and also the part of Eli that thinks dumb jokes are a life raft. Lee calls me 2 times to talk logistics. She wants her mixer, the one we never use because kneading feels like therapy. And we don't believe in the kind that requires elbow grease. I tell her I'll leave it in the lobby, and she says that feels cold, and I say, you could come get it from the apartment. And she says that feels like a trap. We are a staircase we both keep falling down, landing on our asses on different steps and blaming the architecture. On day 8, I get a letter in the mail from Kendra, a form to sign so she can talk to the bank about certain accounts. I put it on the table with my empty coffee cup and stare at both like I might pick the cup up and it would knock over the form and spill something that would look like a decision. On day 10, Leah sends a picture of a lake with fog over it and the words, "I'm thinking." On day 12, the therapist gets us on a joint call and says, "It's not about the ex. The ex is a mirror. Leah, you like the version of you men want to rescue. Him included. And you," she turns her attention to whatever part of me can feel her through a phone line. "You like the version of you who can make chaos obey rules. Neither of those people can be married to each other." After the call, I sit in the quiet and feel very old. The clock ticks like a metronome set for a song I don't like. I write Lee an email because sometimes writing is the only way I don't make things worse. I tell her about the first time I saw Dawson, how he held a cigarette like it was a grammar lesson. I tell her about the night we drove past her old high school, and she told me a story about stealing a banner, and I thought, then and there, that I would spend the rest of my life driving her past everything that once tried to hold her. I tell her I can't be married to the part of her that keeps wanting to be 15, but I will be married to the part that wants to be 50 with laugh lines and regrets we didn't domesticate into pets. I hit send and I walk away from the computer and wash a dish like it's a liturgy. On day 14, at 9 at night, the doorbell rings. Leah stands there with tulips, because she thinks she's in a movie with the roles reversed, and it might be cute. She looks like someone who stayed up somewhere that wasn't a bed. She steps inside and says, "Can we talk?" And I say yes because I am more door than man when it comes to her voice. We sit at the table like we have sat for hundreds of meals and a dozen arguments and 2 birthdays that made us want to leave the city. She says, "I blocked him," and shows me her phone like proof of baptism. There's a screen that says, "You won't receive texts or calls from this person." It should be a relief. It feels like a screenshot of the top of a cliff with no guardrail. "I need you to believe me," she says. "I choose you." Something in me moves forward. Something else stays shell-shocked. "Okay," I say, because it's all I've wanted to hear, and also I'm afraid of getting what I want when it arrives in a voice that sounds rehearsed. She reaches for my hand, and I give it to her, because I don't know the grit strength of my own boundaries. Her fingers are cold. We sit there and our hands are an honest thing, even if our mouths aren't. She says she's sorry. She says she was chasing a feeling, not a person. She says a dozen things that sound good and end with periods. I look at the basil plant, and it looks less like a metaphor and more like a plant for once. I realize that might be the real change I've been waiting for. We sleep in the same bed that night. In the morning, I watch her pack her bag for work, and I recognize the choreography of my life. She kisses the top of my head, and it lands like a reprieve. I make coffee twice as strong and only drink 1 cup, because self-control is a language I'm trying to stop speaking to everything. For 3 weeks, we behave like a couple who went to the edge and came back smarter. We are on time to things. We leave parties together before 2. She doesn't post photos with men off to the side. I let go of the rope of her phone and sit on my hands when I want to demand it from her, so I can feel the thrill of catching her and the false righteousness of forgiving. We go to therapy and we tell the truth like a profession. We have sex like 2 people who believe in the possibility of slow mornings. Then, on a Thursday, I come home to a smell that tilts the room. It isn't perfume. It's something like cologne pretending to be detergent. I follow it to the laundry room, where Leah has a pile of clothes on top of the washer, and the shirt on top is unfamiliar. It's a faded black with a bird that isn't quite a bird. I pick it up like it will bite. I turn it over. On the inside collar, there's a tag printed with a name written in marker. 7 letters that bend into a shape I hate. I put the shirt down like it might burn the house. Leah walks in behind me and stops, seeing the black like a wound. "Oh," She says, in the small voice people use when a tab they thought they closed pops up in front of their boss. That's not mine. Did you go to a thrift store? I ask, and my voice sounds like someone else's father. It's Marnie's cousin's boyfriend's. She says, and the flurry of apostrophes tries to distract me from the obvious. He spilled. It's his, I say. Say it. She looks at the floor. She says nothing. The humidity of the laundry room presses against my teeth. Did he come here? I ask, and the air changes shape because that's the question that makes a home not a home anymore. No, she says. Too fast. Rehearse. Fast. Child. Fast. Where did you see him? I ask. At a coffee shop, she says. He gave me the shirt to wash because. No, I say. No. Stop. The story doesn't have to be clever. It has to be true. She leans back against the door frame and crosses her arms, like she's refusing a vaccine. Are you going to hit me with your paper again? She asks, and I don't understand for a second. And then I realize she means the lawyer, the threat. I'm going to hit you with my choice, I say, and I am suddenly so tired I could lie down on the tile. Trip straight to divorce court, I say, and the line tastes bitter in my mouth because it sounds like a meme. You're choosing him, even if you're pretending it's the idea of him. I'm choosing me. I'm done. She opens her mouth and then closes it. Her face goes through 5 expressions that don't land, and then she settles on anger. Because anger feels like power when you're losing. You're throwing away a marriage over laundry, she says. I'm throwing away the part of me that waits for you to become someone else, I say. I don't want to be your rehab. I want to be your husband. You're not perfect, she says, as if this might change physics. I never said I was, I say. I said I was finished. The next 2 weeks are a montage, if you describe them to someone who hasn't lived them. Lawyers and notarized papers and assets that sound smaller in a list than they do when you touch them. Friends who don't know how to pick a side and pretend neutrality is virtue. Her sister texts me a prayer hands emoji, and then a long message about forgiveness that includes the words cycles and ancestral. And I don't write back because I don't know how to tell her that you can't heal someone else's family by starting your own with the same disease. We handle the logistics like adults because we have no choice. She moves into a studio with tall windows that will let her feel observed even alone. I stay in the apartment because someone has to keep the basil alive. We divide the mugs and she keeps the one with Nevada because now it's a joke she can tell at parties about how we fought over a shape. I keep the mixing bowl because my grandmother's ghost makes better arguments than I do. The night before we sign the final papers, she texts me, "Do you want to talk?" I stare at the screen like it might tell me the future. I write, "No. We already said everything." And then I delete it because it's not true. What we said is everything we could say, without bleeding to death. I write, "Yes. Come over." And I put my phone down and pace a groove in the living room floor. The basil leans toward the street, because the street is loud and interesting. She arrives in a jacket that makes her look like she has somewhere important to be. She stands just inside the door like a guest. We look at each other the way people look at paintings and hope to be moved. She says, "I'm scared," and it is the most honest thing either of us has said in months. "Me too," I say. "I thought I could keep all myselves," she says, and laughs in a way that almost makes a sound. "I thought the young one could sit in my lap, while the grown one did the dishes. I thought you'd be okay if I fed her sometimes. I thought love was work," I say. "I thought if I did the work, the house would stand." She looks at the basil and for once doesn't try to make it say anything. "Do you hate me?" she asks. No. I say quickly, and then quieter. No. I hate the part of you that liked being chosen by him more than you liked being chosen by yourself. I hate the part of me that wanted to win against a ghost. We stand very close and very far. She doesn't cry because she used all her tears on other rooms. I don't cry because mine live in a place my father built for men who wanted forgiveness, but never asked for it. We hug and it feels like a respectable burial of a thing that could have hurt us more if we'd let it. At the courthouse, the clerk speaks to us like we're the 18th couple today to untie a knot in front of her, and she has dinner plans. We sign where she points. The pen has a small chain. I almost laugh because it seems right that a thing that sets you free is attached to the desk. Outside, Lee says, "Do we get lunch to celebrate or two?" She trails off because there is no verb for this. I shake my head. "I can't," I say, and she nods in a way that looks like relief wrapped in manners. For months after, I expect to feel the absence of Leah like a missing limb. Instead, I feel something else. The presence of time I get to spend without explaining myself to a woman who has curated her life into a performance piece with poor lighting. I go to work and I move concrete and I eat sandwiches that are too simple to be sad. Eli drags me to a trivia night and I learn nothing except that there is a joy in being very bad at things in a room full of strangers being very good. I buy a new towel and it feels like a decision. I see her once, months later, on the street with a man who walks like a sentence she didn't finish writing. It might be Dawson. It might not. They are laughing like people who believe their laughter can keep rain away. I keep walking because there is no prize for proving I'm okay. At home, I water the basil. I turn it a 1/4 inch. I make cinnamon rolls and burn them slightly because it's my style. I eat one at the window and watch the street, and think about all the rooms I won't have to check for ghosts anymore. When people ask me what happened, I don't say, "She cheated," because I don't know if she did. I say, "She kept a door open," and sometimes I add, "and I got tired of closing it." Some people nod like they understand. Some people tell me about their own doors. Some people say nothing and squeeze my shoulder, because the world still understands touch better than language. If there is a moral, I don't want it. I don't want to hand it to the next man who thinks his love can turn a time machine into a porch light. I want him to know that it's okay to stop waiting at windows. I want him to know it costs something to leave, and it costs something to stay, and you have to pick the bill. You can pay without selling your name. I want him to know that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say, "Trip straight to divorce court." Not because you hate her, but because you promise to love yourself too, and vows that don't include you make poor shelters when the weather turns. The basil dies eventually. Plants do. I compost it and buy another, and put it in the same spot. It leans the same way at first, remembering the light's old habits. I turn it a 1/4 inch. It learns me. I learn it. We bend toward the sun together without apologizing to the night. I go to the museum some Sundays and stand in front of a painting that is mostly white except for a single red stitch, and I think, yes, that's it. That's the feeling. And then I leave and buy an orange and eat it on the steps and let the juice run down my wrist because not everything has to be saved. Some things just have to be tasted. And then you wipe your hand and go on with your day, and the streetlight still thinks it is the moon. And you let it, because you know what you are, even when other things pretend to shine.